Welcome, folks. Yet again, back in black. Lucas Welk got the black shades on. The Auto Trends
I got the
podcast
black
boys are
shades.
here. Yet again, another episode, bringing it right from the heart of around the world, coming out of Jacksonville, Florida. Lucas Welk coming out of the Philippines and his place down in the island town, man. Anyhow, it is absolutely an awesome time to come back to you guys as a listeners. This is one of our favorite things to do, our podcast. The Auto Trends that we launched. It is just a joy to go back into the industry and just serve the industry truly from our heart, truly just from the mission of bringing the industry together in a big way. We are just thrilled to bring so many insights from what's happening with the automakers to what's happening in the aftermarket to distribution manufacturers. We really want to bring it all together, even getting into the depths of MDM last episode with Sam Russo and Nils. That was awesome. We look forward to doing so many more episodes, not only with industry insights, industry experts. We're looking forward to bringing on organizations in the industry to put them on display and really just showcase everything that we have to offer in the industry. It is very exciting. And today we are going to be talking to you a lot about a lot going on in the world. Assassination, Donald Trump, unreal. I'm shocked. How does that happen? What are the political pressures now? What's happening with the political kind of world, and how does that impact the automotive globally? I certainly think there's some impacts there. But without further ado, Lucas Welk, what's up, brother? How are you, man?
How are you, man? How are you, man? I'm just looking at my cam here, and I look a little bit ridiculous because it looks like I'm inside wearing shades, but believe me, I'm half inside, half outside. This is an open room, but I was just looking, thinking people are probably thinking, "What is wrong with this guy?" Um, but
See,
anyway,
Secret Service,
really,
man.
yeah,
Secret
no,
Service,
exactly,
man.
exactly. I'm keeping shit locked down here. There's no assassination attempts. Yeah, yeah. When I'm around, exactly,
Oh, I tell
exactly.
you what, I don't know if you saw the absolute backlash that the Secret Service chick, I don't know her name. Did you see any of
Right?
that backlash from
Not.
the Secret Service lady? She couldn't holster her gun. She's hiding away from the bullets. It
Oh,
it
right.
was
No, I
like,
never ever. No.
oh, you didn't.
No, I never seen that in particular. No, I
Oh,
watched. Yeah,
oh,
lots and lots
oh.
about the assassination attempt, but no, I didn't hear anything about this lady.
Oh, maybe this was just
No.
focused on North America. So if you go back and you look at the footage, there's
Right,
three ladies. One lady in the Secret Service apparently is like an OG. She is like, I mean, the crown jewel, right? She is like the, she is the truth when it comes. Like, we need more of her. And then
right,
the other two look like sporadic ducks. I mean, you're not sure. Like, they were just like first one on the job. They definitely got hired not because of their skills. And then the one Secret Service lady, she was escorting Trump out, ducking down, doing really nothing that maybe she's supposed to do. It seemed like from the untrained eye. Then she
right.
goes to holster her gun, can't holster her gun, all over the place. I mean, it was like a zoo. You got to look
Right,
that
right.
up, man.
Oh,
It's
interesting. Yeah, I'm
hilarious.
gonna take a look at that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
No,
so
that's
good.
yeah, yeah.
It's so
And when that
good.
happened, I was just shocked. I mean, how does that actually happen? I mean,
I don't
you know,
know.
Jesus, you know, yeah, very, very worrisome. Obviously, yeah.
Well, it was
I don't even know what
150,
else to say.
150
150
yards. The
yards.
shooter was, yeah, 150 yards. The
Right,
shooter was 150 yards, and they didn't
right,
secure. Like, I was talking to many folks, and like, that mistake, if Trump dies, obviously there's going to be like some people that are like so happy because they're just disgusting.
yeah,
Um, but like, single-handedly, that would have changed the direction of history.
right. Absolutely,
You know what I mean?
absolutely.
That's intense. That's crazy.
Well, it's good now. I know RFK. He's getting Secret Service protection now, which I think is good. He's been asking for that for months as well, and he never had it before. And they just announced the other day, obviously, that he's going to receive Secret Service protection. So
But
That's positive.
why does it take an assassination attempt
Exactly.
to get that?
Yeah. No,
That's
exactly.
such a failure, right?
Yeah.
The Secret Service, their job is so that nobody should get a shot off.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
go through the year and you're like, man, it was a boring year, that means you did your
Right.
job,
Yeah, exactly. And especially
right?
from 150 yards, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, fine. I mean, if they would have said, look, the guy was 2 miles away with, this high powered, whatever sniper
Yeah,
rifle, and it was the most amazing
fully
shot in the world,
trained.
yeah, yeah, okay, fine. Okay, granted. But come on, from 150 yards, nah, that shouldn't be happening.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
But
crazy. I was shocked.
yeah,
I mean, and here's the thing that's so funny, and I think you'll appreciate this. And this is a little bit, you know, I I've always been pretty agnostic to the politics. I mean, obviously, I lean more today. I just don't. I think the whole fall. I think the Democratic Party has been hijacked by the far, far, far left.
yep,
Um, but like you gotta tip your hat to Trump. Never let a good crisis go to waste, right?
right. Yeah,
He
yeah, yeah.
gets shot at and he's yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I mean, he's just
Exactly.
firing his people up.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
No, 100%.
there's
Yep.
not one conservative or even somebody's on the fence. Oh, everybody's showing up in November.
Sure. Absolutely. Yep.
You
Yep.
know?
No, and that's the kind of, I mean, whether you like Trump, you don't like Trump, I mean, that's the kind of leader that you want. I mean, that makes a significant sort of statement, when that sort of stuff is done. Now, if that was Biden, Jesus, I think he would have had a heart attack just hearing the bullet shot. But, but yeah,
Yeah.
and that's, leadership. And again, you got to give Trump credit. I mean, anybody who discredits that, and because he's the not the role model is not the right word, but he's the focus, the eye for the United States. You know what I mean? When he's president, that's the kind of
Certainly.
president you want. That's so important.
Certainly.
So yeah, good on him. For doing that, stepping up, and you know, literally taking the bullet.
Yeah, no, I think it's
So
awesome, man. I think, we'll see where it all plays out. But I do think there's implications.
yeah,
And I think when you look at the automotive, I think there's implications. Like, for example, Trump has appointed or awarded his vice president JD Vance, right? So
yeah,
that's and so I think when you start to look at it, because okay, Biden and the Democrat, they may win, and they would continue to push the EV agenda, right? Because that's what they've done, right? Largely, like
yep,
Kamala Harris when she's laughing or whatever, and
yep,
and she's laughing or whatever, and it's like, all right, there's the EV agenda that's being pushed, and she loves EV, electric buses. She doesn't know anything about them. Like, she's giggling the whole
right,
time. It's just kind of like it's very disingenuous. Is that the right word? Disingenuous.
right,
Um,
yeah, yeah,
and but when you look at, like, okay, Trump picks JD Vance, let's take a look at, his views. He's very energy independent, right? And he's very
mhm,
vocal about it. He's
yep,
very much fossil fuels. He
yep,
talks a lot about oil. He talks a lot about energy independence. And I think there's implications in the automotive.
hundred
Already
percent.
know EV is struggling, right, from a profitability perspective. We already know that EV is struggling in a sense of reoccurring purchases, the whole buyer network, how that operates. We know that is obviously, a concern.
Yep,
So I think we talk about it a lot, Lucas, is okay. So if the next administration is going to be more focused on energy independence, naturally that will lower the cost of fuel. That will
mhm,
lower the cost, right? Transportation becomes lower. We're going to
yep,
see parts become more affordable. People will keep their vehicles longer, right? We're going to see,
yep,
I think we're going to see the cost of capital decrease. So I think you're going to start to see your interest rates decline. So I think you're going to see a lot of components that support, okay, I can have my combustion engine for a little bit longer.
yep,
Okay, maybe we'll see where these investments in EV net out, because there's been north of $500 billion global investment in EV, but we're seeing a lot of profitability issues. We see Volkswagen, merge or at least have a partnership with a $5 billion investment into Rivian. I think that's very interesting to see that, how that nets out. But regardless, I think it'll shift automotive to some degree in how that what's the trajectory. I think that's pretty important, and that's something that we should look at.
Oh, absolutely. No, these elections coming up for sure are going to have a huge impact. And I think whether it's auto manufacturers, parts manufacturers now, I think they're going to be very hesitant to make any huge, leaps in any sort of direction, obviously up until the election, because it will make a big difference whether, it's going to be a Biden administration or it's going to be a Trump administration or, so I think you're going to see everybody from that perspective kind of back off, not make any huge jumps and just kind of, see what happens there.
Well, what's interesting,
yeah,
Lucas, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, well, what's interesting about that is when we look at like China, right? So under the Trump administration, it was really taxation, right?
Right.
We are going to tax them heavily. And China made macro decisions based on that. We know that under the EV model and current administration, that has become relaxed to some degree. China has its eye on North America in EV. They really want to come up through, South and Central America. They're trying to begin to have a bigger presence in Mexico. I know we've talked about that a lot, but does that move the needle in how automotive GPD perspective, how does that impact it? I think there's definitely going to be something that bends that curve.
There will.
Hands down. What's your take on that?
I mean, from my own perspective, it's just so hard to gauge, at this point when we're talking, even from an EV perspective with the upcoming election, you were talking about Kamala Harris and all that sort of stuff. I mean, we tried to gauge this 6 months ago, and you just don't know which way the market is going to go with EVs. I mean, you see that EV sales are up fine, overall, throughout the US, throughout Canada, throughout Europe, EV sales are up. But when you say they're up, I mean, if you're talking about percentages and numbers, of course they're up. But does that mean they're selling a lot of them? No. Are they selling, plenty of them, in comparison to combustion engines? No. Are there repeat customers? Are people who buy EVs, do they buy again? Are they repeat? Are they loyal customers? I think that's still yet. Obviously, this is all yet to be seen. Obviously, there's more and more infrastructure they're putting in place now on an international level and local levels. There's more infrastructure for the EVs, but no, you're right. It's a pricing game, and you're seeing a lot of people losing that game right now. A lot of manufacturers. I'm just going to pull up. I think we had some stats and stuff we're going to take a look at.
Well, one thing was China. What was interesting, and this is a really
that's what I was going to say
component when you look at the Chinese EV market. We know they're after North America, and we'll get on a whole nother segue into Tesla and the Ford Lightning, the electric truck. That's really interesting intel.
It is.
Very interesting. And it's very telling. I have since made, made the statement before that there's only going to be a handful of EV companies that really make it. I think Tesla's one. I think Rivian is one with their partnership in the VW. I think because the VW is very large. I mean, and they have a great presence. And I think that works. I think that partnership's really smart. But when we look at China, so what I find most interesting about China is that per the reports that there's currently 137 EV brands in China. Only 19 of them will be profitable.
Right.
So you're saying that the studies and the data suggest, again, that by 2030, fewer than 20 Chinese EV brands will be profitable. I think that's absurd. I think that actually is way high. I think it's going to be more like 5 or 8.
Exactly. Yeah.
Think the automakers around the world. You've got about 28 of them, right? Total.
Exactly.
So you're telling me China's just going to have 20 successful. There's 137 of them. So basically, every single private equity fund is like, yep, we'll invest in this brand. Yep, we'll invest in this brand. Yep. No, that's
Exactly.
got
Yeah,
written all over it.
that's right. That's right. And it's still something, that's so new. And I'm surprised that there's so many people are looking at that as a profitable investment, from a fund perspective, or because I certainly wouldn't. It's a relatively still new market. I mean, how long has Tesla been around? Not really, realistically, not all that long. So it's not I wouldn't say it's a tried and tested market to go in there with any sort of confidence. So obviously they're rolling the dice to a certain extent by jumping in and taking a risk on the investment. And but like you say, those percentages you're talking maybe not even 10%, are going to be profitable.
Well, that brings up the question on the aftermarket. So
Right.
we know a vehicle that is purchased brand new up until the warranty is going to the dealership, right? So that warranty claim is going to the dealership. The dealership is billing the automaker and that's the revenue, right? And that's what's built into the price. So when you pay for a car, you're like, oh my God, why is I paying $50,000 for the car? Well, because they've
Yep.
built in failure rates, they've built in warranty claims, they've built in, and they have aggregate data to look at that to where they can forecast it accurately. Because if they didn't forecast it accurately, they would be out of business because it's not profitable. If you're losing $5,000 every single time you sell a car, we're out of business, guys. But
Yep.
what I find most interesting about this is the aftermarket. Is we know that once a vehicle goes out of warranty post 6 years, on average, that it goes to the independent repair. So
Right.
that's what has supported the entire aftermarket industry from a parts perspective. So the question now goes to, if you're an aftermarket manufacturer, are you investing in EV today?
Right.
Right? You have to do R&D. You have to have engineers. You have to research it. You have to, what product lines are failure? We know that there's only about 40 to 60 parts that are actually replacement on an EV. So
Yep.
with the change potentially in power, as we have the RNC going on right now, and by the way, just if you're agnostic and you're just honest, it looks really good in the Republican favor. Everything's
Right.
going for them. They got it
Yep.
together. So if that occurs, we know there's going to be a contraction in EV from a legislation perspective, right? Hence leadership, right? With the Trump
Yep.
and JD's, kind of what they've stated prior. But what's going to happen is, as an aftermarket member, where do you put your investment if you're an executive leadership with EV?
Right.
Do you hold off? Do you let the model prove itself out?
Yep.
Because distribution has to pick up those product lines, so we need failure rates. So I think it's going to be really interesting to watch. But from my perspective, I mean, I know there's a reported 92 billion in the past months that have been invested in EV in the aftermarket. That's a
Massive.
scary number.
It
It's a
is.
scary
It
number.
is. I think even, and this is maybe kind of a bold prediction, but I think, within, let's say 10 to 15 years, I don't believe that there's going to be a such thing as a car lot. There may be a building that has a few cars that you can go in and say, right, I've never seen a Tesla, I've never looked at a Tesla, but here's what a Tesla looks like, and you just simply go in there just to see it, touch it, feel it, and then you buy it. But I think it'll be kind of like the Tesla model. Like, you're just ordering online. You're not going to go to a dealership that has 300 cars sitting outside in a parking lot. I don't believe that's the model going forward. I don't think that there's any need anymore much to go to a dealership, like you're saying, other than really for service. Unfortunately, I think the parts departments, and I don't know if you agree or not, Gideon, but I mean, I think very, very few people would ever go to a dealership now to the parts counter and say, hello sir, do you have such and such part? Obviously the older generation, fine, they may do so, but I mean, now with e-commerce and all that sort of stuff, you can easily go online and search what part exactly you need and look at a million different options on a website, all aftermarket options, OE options. you know um so yeah, I think from that perspective, as far as somebody investing, in that sort of model, that's going to be gone. Everything's going to become more and more automated, obviously, from a manufacturing point of view. So it's just a matter of streamlining, everything. So if you're making an investment into it, you're really investing in the future and not so much on infrastructure and stuff like that.
Well, I think you're 100% right.
Um,
And gosh, this is I want to say episode like 20. We had Jonathan Lampos on, a dealership consultant, auto group consultant, really smart guy. And he had reached out to us about coming on and talking about it. And I really, I, I don't ever turn an eye to. You never know what value you're going to bring. And he came on the Auto Trends podcast,
yep, yep,
um, Jonathan Lampos, and really smart guy. And he said it, and it stuck with me that we better be the automakers and dealerships and dealer networks and auto groups. Elon Musk did not focus on ICE, internal
yep,
combustion engine vehicles, and he focused on EV.
yep.
He said because we would have been put out of business,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
You just think about it. When you go into a Tesla store, I don't know if you've ever been in one or you've ever walked through or you've ever kind of gone through the experience. Um, I've walked in and touched some things and then walked out. It's a very
Right.
much a boutique buying experience. You go
Yes.
in, you look at, oh man, the beautiful images, the
Yep.
beautiful kind of things, the machine, right? And it's really an elite level experience. And you go in and you sit in the vehicle, you say, wow, okay,
Right.
I want to test this. And they have one there that you can go and test drive. So
Yep.
like you're in like a shopping center or you're in a really nice place.
Exactly.
Like next
Yep.
to you is Louis Vuitton. Next to
Right.
you is Chanel. Next to you is
Exactly.
Rolex, right? So what they've done is they've put themselves in a shopping experience that is unparalleled to these grease monkey dealerships where you go in and you get haggled and you just ugh, 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 you know?
Yep.
And so they've
Yep.
elevated the shopping experience. You drive it, you pick the color out, and once you do it, they say, "No worries. Once you make the selection, you buy the car, it
Yep.
shows up at your doorstep with 0 miles on it," right?
That's right.
You don't
Yep.
drive the same one. And
Right.
so when you look at that experience, that's an incredible experience.
It is.
I think
Yeah. Yeah.
you're going to see automakers largely adopt it, but they have to figure out their franchise laws. That's a
That's the
big
problem.
blocker when these
Yeah.
big automakers, because you've got franchise
Yes.
agreements and these are the models and they never innovated.
Exactly.
And now you have
That's right.
lawsuits, right? Just look at the CDK outage.
Yep.
Dealer groups and dealer networks are connecting and they're suing CDK. I know
Yep.
that's not related to the shopping experience, but when you look at Tesla, they operate on a different model. And
That's right.
so it's going to be interesting to see how all of our other automakers react to kind of this new emergence of this new shopping experience, right? Me and you are both young guys. How do you
Yep.
want to buy your shit? I want to buy my shit online. I want to,
Yep.
if I got to feel it, I want to go get a really good experience. I want a
Right.
fucking nice towel. I want a nice fucking lemonade. Like I
That's
want to
right.
feel good,
Yep.
and then I'll get fucked, right, or whatever.
Exactly. No, and no, I think you're absolutely right. And most certainly, I believe the Tesla model is certainly the model, of the future. And all these new automakers, like you say, unfortunately, the older ones, GM, Ford, these guys, they are stuck. They are stuck in a specific model, and how you get out of that easily, I have no idea. But certainly, if you're just starting out, you need to follow the Tesla model. You need to be innovative. You need to go down that path, keep the costs low, low cost on brick and mortar. Because like you say, that's what the consumers, the younger generation and whatnot, not necessarily you and I, Gideon, but that's what the younger generation want, is just a slick buying experience. Because no longer, I think we talked about it before, no longer do you go to a parts counter or to a dealership to look at a car for information. You've got all the information. Like before I go to a dealership and say I want to buy a Cybertruck, for example, before I even go to Tesla, I'll know everything about the fucking Cybertruck. I'll look online. I'll have watched a million videos. I'll know all the specs. The only reason I want to go there is to actually see the truck, to touch the truck, to actually see it in person. That's the only purpose. I don't need some sales guy standing and telling me how much horsepower it has and it's got this feature and it's got that feature. I know this before I show up there. So I don't need to be sold on it. I'm already going there with the intention of purchasing that particular thing. And not just buying habits in general now. I don't leave the house, like you say, we're ordering online. I don't go to a shopping mall really just to look around. I've got a very specific purpose why I need to go there, and boom, I go to a specific shop, grab a thing, and out I go. I don't want to be hassled. I don't want to be bothered. I know what I'm looking for. I don't need to ask the lady or gentleman who's ever working in there for more information generally. um, everybody's educated.
Well, I mean, I think it's only going to continue down that path, right? So
Yep.
you and myself were the first generation that we actually had a cell phone in our hand before we were out of college, right? My first cell
Right.
phone was my junior year in high school. And so I
Yep.
was the start. I grew up with no internet. Now, obviously, we have internet and the phone
Yep.
and all that stuff, but it's only going to continue to move at a quicker pace, right? And the younger generation, they just have no patience, right? They have no
No.
patience. They want gratification today. I want to
That's right.
already do my research with nobody bugging me. I want to go in and just make the decision. But I find it really interesting. So, kind of to your point, Tesla is not a truck, right? They just got in
Yep.
the truck world with Cybertruck. You can
Yep.
probably argue that that's even a truck.
Right.
I would definitely say somebody had an argument that said the Cybertruck's not a truck. I'm not going to debate them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And
And then you
Tesla,
have
even from that perspective, I think is really smart with what they did with the Cybertruck, because the Cybertruck is just sexy. You know what I mean? It's a sexy looking truck. People are buying it not because it's an EV.
no.
They're buying it because it's a sexy fucking truck. I'd buy the fucking truck, and I wouldn't necessarily buy an EV, but if I want a sexy looking truck like that, I'd have to buy a Cybertruck, and it just happens to be EV. So they're selling the experience, they're selling that, and people are kind of forgetting that it's EV. But you just look at it and you think that is the coolest shit. That is the coolest thing right now out there, and people are going to be looking at me. I'm going to be super cool driving this thing around. Um, you know, so that's
Well,
it's like Apple. Tesla I would compare to Apple.
for
They're
sure,
kind of in that
for sure.
same space, I would say.
For sure. Well, what I find most interesting is this is a really interesting fact. Tesla Cybertruck beats Ford F-150 Lightning as
Yeah.
top electric pickup truck in latest registration data.
Yeah,
They
that's
beat
interesting.
Ford. Ford.
Yeah.
What is Ford known for? The
Right.
150, the 250, the 350, the
Right.
diesel. Like
Right. Exactly.
the Power Stroke.
Yeah.
Ever heard of a Power
Yeah.
Stroke?
Yeah.
Like
No, that's
I grew up
interesting.
in Texas.
Right.
I grew up, my first job, I was a ranch hand, man, building
Yep.
fences for Bob Roberts at Lytle Feed and Seed. Shout
Right.
out.
Right.
That was my first job, man. Like
Right.
loading, dude, Ford, man. That's all. Well, I'll say this. Bob Roberts only drove Chevys. Texans are crazy. I only drive Chevys. I only drive
Right.
Fords. And
Right.
and both of it's like I've been a battle for hundreds of years.
Sure.
And so Ford, the Power Stroke, like how does Tesla come out with a Cybertruck and beat you? What?
I'd like to see the
That's
background. I
insanity.
looked into that article, but I'd like to see the background fucking data on that, because not that I disbelieve it, but I find it very hard to believe. And if it's in a specifically small market, or if it's very
Yeah.
localized,
Okay.
or if it
No. That's a very good question. Is it localized? Is it very small? Okay. The Ford
right,
Lightning is the Ford EV truck,
right,
right? The Ford Lightning is the EV version of the Ford truck.
yes,
So it's a very small number. So you can go in there and buy a Ford F-150, 250, 350, the Power Stroke, the diesel, but it is relatively small, but it's
yep,
only saying the Ford truck that's an EV. So
right, sure,
that's fair. That's totally fair. If
right,
I'm going to buy a truck that's an EV and the price point is relatively the same, I mean, you look
yep,
at the Cybertruck, it's starting around 100 grand, basically 80 to 100. It's
right,
going to be 100 grand once you're done with it. The
right.
Ford, actually, I don't even know what the Ford Lightning starts at, But my guess, I'm actually going to Google it. But my guess is the Ford Lightning probably is around 75K.
Right. Yeah. So there could be a significant, obviously, price difference there. Which obviously could be a good reason as to why that would be higher. Because that's the only
Yeah.
reason I could think. You're kind of comparing, apples and oranges then.
Right. Um,
It's
yeah.
like saying, well, I sold a lot more Toyota Corollas than I sold Ferraris. Well,
Yeah,
of
well,
course it's
that's
not going to.
interesting. So if you look at the XLT package in the Ford Lightning, it starts out at 63,000. You go up to the Platinum, which is like the premium version on the Ford Lightning, and it's 85. So
Right.
you're looking at plus minus. So the Cybertruck is definitely more expensive, but I find
Yeah.
that's quite interesting. So Ford Lightning, but again, we've known this data. I mean, we've known this data. I think it's an interesting topic, and I think it'll continue to be that path. If I'm going to go buy an EV, I'm going to buy a Tesla because
Yeah.
they've just been around for a long time. People love them. They have a great
Exactly.
following. They have a lot of reoccurring purchases. I've never heard
Yep.
anybody say that thing just doesn't work. So I think it'll be
Yep.
interesting to see. But I think with the political pressures, I think with the parties potentially being a shift, I think you will see definitely some interesting components. So in the automotive, where do you deploy that investment? I think that's something that you absolutely have to keep an eye on. And yeah, you have
I
to
was
time it
reading
right
actually
because
an
that comes
article the
around.
other day, speaking of, election related stuff in Tesla. And I don't know if it's true or if he's already done it, but I heard that Elon Musk was going to come out and endorse Trump
Oh, he
for
did
president,
formally.
which is he did.
He did formally. Yeah.
Oh,
No.
okay, right.
So
No, I
yeah.
just read that, yeah, that recently, but I hadn't known if he did that already or because I also watched a thing, and again, you can correct me if I'm wrong because you're obviously now in the US, but a while ago, Biden had an EV conference, I think is what it was called, at the White House,
Mhm.
and he had, all the EV, companies and owners and boards and whatever there, and he excluded Tesla.
Yeah.
And Elon Musk, yeah, I remember watching an interview, and he said, yeah, he wasn't invited, and you know, Jesus,
Yeah.
that's absolutely
No, that's true.
mind-boggling.
Yeah. So
You
two
know,
things after Trump was the assassination. He formally came out and fully endorsed Donald Trump. Right.
yep,
But you got to think about it, man. Like Elon Musk and Donald Trump are powerhouses. Like
yes,
they are powerhouses, man.
right,
And I mean, they are monsters, but
yep,
they've got kind of a mono e mono, alpha e alpha. Like, dude, they see eye to
right,
eye. They're
right,
businessmen, smart, they're
yes,
intelligent. And regardless, I know a lot of people attack Elon Musk because they say he's autistic. That to me is it's so
yeah, yeah,
low. It's
yeah, yeah.
like
I mean, look what the guy has done. I mean,
it's
look at
so
how
low,
successful he is.
man.
Look at,
It's
you
so
know,
low
um,
when you say that. And I've heard a lot of people
yeah,
say that, and I cringe. I'm like, man, you are really like just something inside you is just, ugh. I'm like, God,
he's
give him
very
credit where
polarized,
credit's due, right? Give him
of
credit where
course.
credit's due, whether you
Yeah,
like him or not. I give you
no,
credit.
exactly,
I
exactly.
don't
Yeah, yeah,
like you,
and he's a
Lucas. I don't like how
polarizing
you do this,
figure.
but I give you credit.
Exactly. No, he's a polarizing figure, and I think with Tesla. I mean, a lot of people, I bet you, don't buy Teslas because they don't like Elon Musk, and they'll say, right, I'm not going to buy a Tesla. I'm not a big fan of Elon. I don't like whatever his political views. He's outspoken. He did this. He did that, and they won't buy a Tesla. And I mean, you'll get the opposite. People that love Elon Musk will buy Teslas. I think it would be very interesting to see what would happen if Elon Musk was not leading Tesla. Was no longer the CEO of Tesla. Where would Tesla go? I
You're
think
right.
it's
No,
interesting. Yeah,
you're 100% right. I mean,
yep,
everything he's. I mean, look at PayPal, right? And there's so many.
right,
Well, if it wasn't for him, he inherited it. I'm so tired of
right,
that, man. I have so many friends that have inherited stuff from like their family or father, and then they turned out to be the biggest zeros I've ever seen in my life. You know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah, yeah,
It doesn't mean anything to me. It just means that maybe they got a little bit of a head start. And hey, by the way, good for them. Good for
yeah,
them.
yeah. And Elon, what I like about him is he's pushing the envelope. He's not looking at today. I mean, Jesus Christ, he's looking at 25, 30 years to the future, with all of his ventures, whether it be SpaceX or Tesla or the Boring Company or whichever company you want to pick and choose from. I mean, he's looking at the future and pushing the boundaries and I think that's why, Tesla will continue to have success with him at the helm. I think, if I was a Tesla investor or working with Tesla, I think if he ever left there, you would see the other automakers catch up very quickly to Tesla, I think, from a design perspective, from a technology perspective, because I think they would let off the gas. As long as he's there, I think he's pushing the envelope with the staff. Right, we got to do better. We got to do better. We got to, invent more. We got to be more creative. We got to push the envelope with him at the helm. But I think if he wasn't there, you'd see them slip.
100% like a seasoned CEO that just bounces from
So,
company to company. I've always been
exactly.
intrigued by those guys. You know what I mean? Like I've always been intrigued by CEOs that bounce from company to company, and they've been CEOs at 3 or 4 different places, but like they're
Right.
not outstanding. They're not visionaries. Like
No.
there's been a couple of those guys that I've been in meetings with, and then they're just kind of, I mean, they're smart guys, right? Like they're
Sure.
smart guys, and they can run a company, but they're just kind of like managers, like in a manager.
Exactly.
I'm just a
That's right.
manager, and like
That's right.
I hate that.
Yeah.
That to me is not a very good CEO. That to me
No.
is actually a really poor CEO with a big
That's right.
ego. And you have a big
Yes.
ego, and you just kind of bounce, and you only take C-suite positions, and you look down. I don't have a lot of respect for that, and I've known a lot of those type of guys, but I agree.
Yep.
If Elon Musk moved out and they brought in like a manager CEO that's like big ego, they
Yep.
absolutely would, because there would be no vision, there would be no future.
No.
Elon Musk is
That's right.
he's such a great visionary. And I think
Yes.
that's one thing that nobody gives him enough credit for.
Yes.
Because actually a great colleague of mine made the comment. He goes, leadership is about envisioning the future to avoid potential pitfalls, right?
Yes.
That's what leadership is. Leadership
Yes.
is not management. It's not like I'm managing paper from
No.
point A to point B. No, it's managing the navigation system that you avoid massive pitfalls through your vision, through your approach and how you work with people, through how you develop talent, through how you develop teams, how you develop products, what the future.
Exactly.
I think Elon Musk is a master at that. He's
Yeah. No,
so good.
I had a business partner when I was in Qatar, and his name is Dr. Khalid Al Ali, and he worked for NASA for a long time. He has his doctorate in engineering and massively, massively smart guy. But he would come into the room with me, and we'd have a meeting with all of our staff around. And this guy, very similar to Elon Musk as far as vision and stuff goes. But you left that meeting every single time, and the employees would leave feeling more fired up than anything else because he just instilled that confidence around the table with all of our staff. And he just kind of put that together saying, right, we are the team that's going to make this company amazing. And obviously we went on to sell the company, but this is the core team. Nobody here has to worry about their jobs. We're all in this together. We're here to support one another. Let's just fucking rock and roll this thing. And everybody was an expert in their own space. Everybody valued everybody else's opinion. And if you have an argument, who the fuck cares? Get over it
Yeah,
and just move on.
whatever.
Everybody's getting, there was no insecurity there. Everybody could speak their mind. We wanted new ideas, come up with new, fresh ideas, bring it up. Let's do it. But without being fearful that, oh, if I do that or I fuck that up, I'm going to lose my job. Oh, geez, I'm going to get written up if I do that. Or if I say that, oh my God, this is bad. I want, just everything out in the open. Everybody's comfortable. Everybody's being paid well. Everybody's happy to come to work every day. Flexi this, flexi that, great. But that's disappearing. I mean, I'm
It's
quite
so
thankful.
disappearing.
Yeah, I'm very thankful I'm not in Canada, to be honest with you, because I think if I actually worked in an office sitting in Canada, I would be fired immediately or in jail, or
You'd kill people.
it's so yeah. You'd see me on CNN. Yeah, yeah, exactly. You know, yeah. Because even now, Gideon, I mean, we were on conference calls all the time with people, and it seems like people are wound up like a fiddle, and it's like,
Oh,
what the fuck? What's wrong with you? Like, what's
oh,
you okay? Or but they're just wound up and everything's stress and the drama, and it's but yeah, we're kind of putting
that's
everybody into this box
yeah.
at work, and okay, you got to do this like this, and don't do that, and don't ever say that again, and and it's like we're babysitting. My companies, I want to hire adults. I don't want to hire kids. I don't have to
No.
tell you, please show up for work on time if you don't mind. Please show up at 8 a.m. and you can leave at 4 p.m. You know, the employee, obviously show up and do your shift, but if you need to leave early, leave early. If you need to stay late till whatever to get something done, just use common sense. I mean, we're adults here.
Well, it's like I think largely today, the professional workforce is when people leave work, they sigh. It's like a sigh of relief.
Right.
You
Right.
know, they go take a
Right.
dump for a fucking hour, right?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
literally, like, what the fuck? You went and took a
Right.
shit for an hour 3 times?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
That's literally largely that is it. I remember when I was
Yep.
working in the office, at the distribution level, I had this one kid who he'd go take a shit 3 times a day for 45 minutes.
Right.
3 times.
Right. Right.
I
Right.
started tallying it up. I started
Right.
tallying up, and dude, I'm like, "Bro, that is hardcore, man."
Right.
And
Yeah.
no, but I think we've lost the freedom to just let it rip.
Yes.
And I think, you know, I just look back, you know, when we kind of scribbled the Auto Trends podcast idea on a little bitty one pager and flipped it over to each other and said, "You know what? Let's launch it." And we did.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I think one of the secrets, I think, to our success, right? I know we hit 1,000 followers. We have so much incoming discussions and connections and meetings and just
Yep.
really connecting with a lot of people in the industry. I think one
Yep.
of the things that is really our secret to success is we both kind of come from that same model of just
Yes.
let it rip. It's
Yeah.
not always going to be perfect. It's not always going to be
No.
this amazing, oh man, everything's perfect. No, life's not
Yeah.
perfect. You
That's
know,
right.
like
That's right.
like shit happens. But
Right.
um, and so I think even when the automotive, I see that people are so free.
Right.
I've had a lot of people say, "Man, I've got so much to say," and I said, "Just come on the Auto Trends podcast. Let's talk about it." And they
Right.
say,
Right.
"No, I can't do that," and they just shrug down. And then
Right.
they're like, "Oh," and I'm like, "What are you so scared about? If
Yeah.
you've got a
Yep.
good opinion, let it rip. For
Right.
Christ's
Yeah. Yeah.
sake,
Yeah.
the industry is fucking needs you. Like
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
what?" It drives me absolute nuts. And
And,
and
it's the
you know,
employers, I think, that are, and large part to the employers or the human resources department are putting the employees in these little boxes and saying,
yeah.
right, here's a big, huge, massive list of things you can't fucking do. And here's a small little list of things you can do. And it's like, okay, right, sweet. So I'll just sit here and shut up and I won't touch anybody, definitely won't touch anybody, and I won't talk to anybody because I might say something bad that might offend them. So I'll just sit here in my little cubicle and just mind my own business and be miserable. And if I share my opinion, my manager's going to get upset. So he'll tell me to fuck off and just get back to what I'm supposed to be doing. And
Or God forbid I go speak to somebody ahead of him, and then the manager's like offended that you didn't speak to me first, like the chain of
right,
command, and then it becomes
right,
all it's like, oh my God.
right, yeah, yeah, yeah. Why can't everybody just be equal? You know what I mean? Like everybody has a job to do. Just everybody's, in their role, sort of thing, and just do the best possible job you can do. Like, I mean, when I is in the Middle East, actually, it's funny. I'm just saying this story to somebody yesterday. We had a tea boy, so it's very common that in the Middle East, inside the office, you have a guy that makes tea. And they don't, they hardly make anything, to be very honest with you. But this guy made the most amazing tea like on the planet. And anytime we'd have any Saudis, Qataris, whatever, Omanis, come in and they'd ask for this tea, he made it very fresh. And they'd all say, Lucas, how do you get, a guy like this? Can I take him to my office and I'll hire him and I'll compensate you and I'll give you money if I can have this guy? No, I said, he's mine. But lovely guy. But he it just made the best tea on the planet, making fuck
Yeah.
all, but it made him proud. Like he'd serve it, and he'd put fresh peppermint and all this shit. But to get the compliments from everybody recognizing that he made this amazing tea, and he's making a few $100 a month, total. You know, but that's the kind of employee you want working there. He was
Oh,
just
hell
the
yeah.
best tea boy on the planet. Like I don't ask him to operate a telephone or a laptop or do anything else, but make tea. That's his job. He doesn't clean, he makes tea. That's it.
And you do
And
it
just be
do
the
it
best.
well. I love
Yes.
that. See, that's and
Yeah.
that I that's where I think it's such a lost art, man. And when you give people like that freedom to just fucking be the best, I
Yeah.
just
Exactly.
mediocrity. Mediocrity just boils my blood.
Yeah.
I have no patience for it.
Right.
I grew up very poor and I grew up
Yep.
very humble. And probably the best part of growing up very poor is your imagination becomes like your greatest entertainment asset. And that's
Yep.
probably why I could just entertain myself for days on end. But it, but one thing I always committed to, and I didn't do it like, okay, I'm just going to be so committed on it. No, it was just kind of natural. Is is strive for the best. Whatever you
Yes.
do, if you're digging a
Right.
ditch, I'm gonna dig the very best ditch that this place has ever seen. I'm gonna
Right.
clean and I had a lot of crappy jobs when I was growing up, but I didn't give a
Yep.
shit. I'm gonna
Right.
fucking be really good at it, and
Yep.
but I think it's just a little bit of a lost art. I think that confidence is lost, and I know we've kind of cut off into a tangent, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it's so relevant,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we'll see
Yep.
where all of it nets out. But I think if you have that mentality today, you got a bright future,
Yes.
really
No, I
bright
agree.
future.
Yep, yep. That and just communicating the ideas because that's a lost art form obviously now as well. And we see that throughout manufacturing, we see that throughout, auto parts, e-commerce, all this sort of stuff. But when we're sitting in on these meetings, people don't speak up in meetings anymore or on
No,
conference calls, or they're afraid to voice their opinion out of fear. Right? What are they going to think? Or it's easier if I just say nothing and I just continue to do my job that I'm just getting paid for, and I get a paycheck every 2 weeks. That's safe. I can just stay in this little bubble. I'm not going to rock any boats. My family's happy. I'm getting a paycheck. Let's not ruffle feathers. But that's not my way of doing things either.
yeah, no, it is. I know we got off on a quite a long tangent, and I know we're coming up on time, Lucas, but
We are.
I'll tell you what, man, just to kind of wind this thing down, as we look at the political pressures, we look at what's happening in automotive, there will be a lot of changes. I think there's going to
Yep.
be changes ahead. I think we're definitely going to keep an eye on them. And I think lastly, if there's any young listeners out there, man, let this be a lesson, man. Just go for it. And you know what?
Exactly.
Come on the Auto Trends podcast and go for it here too. And
Exactly.
that's the model. And you know what? What's the worst thing you do? Nothing. All right.
Right.
Nothing,
Yeah.
nothing happens. Like,
Right.
and I just see it so often, and it's an exciting time to be in this industry. And we'll see where all this nets out. But I think it's a bright future, and I think we'll
Yep.
see and keep a pulse on what's happening in the industry.
Absolutely. And yeah, you're right. We're up on time. But yeah, guys, I mean, we've got some exciting stuff probably next week, Gideon, maybe to announce. Start to mid to late. Anyway, sometime probably next week, which is rather exciting. And yeah, I mean, 1,000 followers, like you mentioned on LinkedIn, that's incredible. I mean, that's 1,000 within about 6 months.
Mhm.
And it's just exploding more and more and more day by day, the amount of messages we're getting. Make sure to follow Gideon, myself. If you have any questions, reach out, and obviously like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Obviously, that's very important. If you're listening, we really appreciate the likes and subscribers. We're trying to grow this as much as we can to get the word out in the market. So, no, but thanks everybody, for the success.
Absolutely. No, and even global. If you are listening in from another country, we're seeing a lot of listeners come from all over the world. And
Yeah,
please, if you think you're worthy of bringing insights from Europe, from Asia, from Africa, South America, this is a global platform, guys. This is not, we're just talking about one little bitty snippet. Lucas sits in the
exactly.
Philippines. He's got a place out there. And so this is a global operation that we're really bringing insights into the automotive. And as always, it is an honor to serve you. We are the voice of the industry. This is the Auto Trends Podcast.